Welcome to AI, Government and the Future, a podcast by Corner Alliance. We explore the intersection of artificial intelligence, government and the future. We work with government to create results. We ignite your agency's mission by helping you to design and implement high-impact and innovative federal programs in AI, broadband, cybersecurity, public safety, and more. Being a government ally is at the core of all we do.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to AI, Government in the Future. I'm your host, Marc Leh, and today I'm thrilled to have Eric Wengrowski join us from Steg AI. Eric is a computer vision and machine learning entrepreneur with a profound interest in photographic steganography, computational photography and imaging, and deep learning. He is the co-founder and CEO of Steg AI, a digital watermarking startup that uses digital watermarks and deep learning to authenticate digital media, enabling businesses to protect their digital libraries against leaks and misuse. Welcome, Eric.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Really happy to be here.
Yeah. No, we're happy to have you. And I think we've got a lot of really, topical concepts to talk about here today. So I think just opening up before getting into some of the technical capabilities around Steg AI and your interests from a AI, programming and solution development perspective, I'd love to learn more about your initial motivation or interest in bringing you to the field of computer vision and machine learning. How did your passion for that subject lead you to explore photographic steganography and imaging specifically?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for asking that. So, growing up, I was a kid who liked math and science. My parents didn't have very technical jobs or anything like that, but, I knew math and science were, good subjects to be strong in school. And pretty much the advice I had going to college was, well, if you're good at math, you should do engineering because that's more applied. You can get a job with an engineering degree. You're never going to get a job with a math degree or studying physics.
Very practical.
Yeah, it's I actually don't think it's great advice, but it worked out for me. So I studied, I went to engineering school and I studied electrical and computer engineering because I didn't know how to program in high school or anything like that. Where I'm from in New Jersey, we didn't have kind of a super technical school system or anything like that. But I knew I liked computers and I wasn't amazing at chemistry and I didn't have to take so many chemistry classes with ECE. But I didn't really like the subject matter all that much initially. I thought circuits were okay, kind of boring. I don't know. And it wasn't until I was a senior in my undergraduate program that I took my first class on computer vision. And it was also my first class on, anything related to artificial intelligence. And it, really clicked with me. Oh my gosh, this is why this stuff is important and interesting. And, it's not just about, putting together a circuit that can operate a TV remote. It's really coming up with, the building blocks of thought and decision making and ideas and, how that could be formalized and how that can be built. So I got really into it and, ended up doing an undergraduate capstone design project on robotics that I guess impressed one of my professors enough to invite me to join her lab as a PhD student. And I ended up, getting my PhD from Rutgers, focusing on computer vision. And actually, the first project that I worked on as a graduate student was all about hiding information invisibly in light. And I worked on it because I thought the team was impressive, and I just thought it was generally a cool idea. And that ended up kind of leading to the research that became Steg AI. My PhD advisor, Professor Kristen Data, ended up becoming my co-founder at Steg AI. So, in a way, I've been working on the same thing for over 10 years now, and it's just a different setting.
Yeah, no, that's great. I appreciate the background. And actually, when I was reading your background and saw that there was a lot of computer vision expertise and obviously a lot of traceability, verifying provenance and authenticity of digital assets, there's a strong parallel with a lot of our Corner Alliance clients over at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST. I've been lucky enough to work with a lot of brilliant engineers looking at video analytics, distributed ledger technology to verify kind of the operations and trustworthiness of whether it's communications networks, computing systems. So I think you chose a great field to go into. A lot of runway and a lot of creativity yet to be discovered in that discipline. And I think we'll have a lot to talk about. So I do want to dig into your background and motivation for starting Steg AI. And from what I can tell on the website, there's a couple of key product offerings that you and your colleagues have advanced. Do you mind describing kind of the specific impetus or market need that led you to start a company focused on digital watermarking and authentication of digital assets?
Sure. Yeah. So when I began doing research as a PhD student, it was really before the deep learning revolution had taken hold. And there was this joke in the field of computer vision, or at least in our lab, that, computer vision was really cool, but it was really hard to get it to work, especially in real world settings outside of the lab. And the advent of deep learning really changed that. And so it was a great time to be a PhD student because, the world really opened up to applications. And had always been interested in building things. And I think entrepreneurship is sort of a natural extension of building things as, an engineer or an academic. You just have to take into account an economic model as well as, making your product actually work. At the time, I remember attending top computer vision conferences like CVPR and seeing, the inklings, just the buds of generative AI technology. And a lot of it at the time was, face swapping, sort of the original style deepfakes where we could record a video right here and we could put my face on your body or vice versa. And, I remember thinking it was really amazing research and, the people who were working on it were brilliant. But I also remember it really stuck with me. And I realized that we're getting to the point in computer vision, computer graphics, where it is going to be not only, easy to create very convincing looking synthetic content, but so easy that there are new risks associated with the advent of this technology, and that the way that we had been thinking about, just as a society, making a determination for what is real and what is trustworthy is going to have to change. So after doing quite a bit of customer discovery, we realized that our forensic watermarking solution and steganography technology, actually fit very nicely into this problem and serves as a way for providing provenance for digital content, which, is become a real emerging need.
Yeah. No, and I think that from what I can tell, your products and underlying technology has direct application to digital creative assets, whether it's Photoshop, maybe video files, and I would assume documents, PDFs, and that sort of thing as well. Do you see any sort of direct applications of Steg IA's underlying analytical processes and technologies benefiting the government, mission space or operations specifically, or any traction in the government market so far?
Yes. So Steg AI has a number of products that all rely on watermarking and watermarking adjacent technologies. When I say watermarking, I'm talking about forensic watermarks where, we're making imperceptible changes to a digital asset that can survive mutations and transforms like compression and resizing and things like this. And so something else I should mention is, we have designed our system to handle images, videos, audio, documents, animations. So we cover a broad swath of assets. And one of the main products that we offer is a way of providing watermarked content credentials to digital assets. And so what that means is for any digital asset, once it's been assigned a content credential that has the signatory of the author and maybe all the edits that have happened, there's a watermark that is actually backing this information up in the case of an image, in the pixels itself. So it's not just extra metadata that can be stripped out. So this is a wide variety of use cases. Everybody wants to know, hey, I want credit for the things that I'm creating. But you might also want to know, hey, if I'm watching a podcast on YouTube, or I get a an alert on my phone that the president is making an announcement, I want to know if this is something that is authentic and I can trust. So some of the folks that are in the government space that this is related to are really about creating that level of trust and authenticity when it comes to communication between governments and their constituents, or even stopping the spread of misinformation. We've been working with the Singaporean IMDA, a government group that regulates communication and media, for some time now on developing a solution for a trustworthy communication channel, such that if anybody ever has a doubt about the origin and authenticity of a piece of content that's from the government that they're looking at, there's an easy and reliable and secure way for them to authenticate and verify that content. And so we're taking that model and applying it to other parts of the government. In fact, we were lucky enough to be invited to the White House a couple of weeks ago to speak with some senior staff members on the National Security Council about how just about the threat of generative AI and deepfakes in general, and what some of the solutions are around provenance that can be used to mitigate these threats.
Yeah, I guess anything that you care to share from some of the conversations you had around what are some of the threats related to generative AI for, government operations or things of that nature?
I think what I can say is that, there's obviously a broad array of applications. The government is not a monolith. There's applications in election monitoring, there's applications in national security. And, for these mission critical applications, it's very important that there is a level of trust that is maintained between a government and its citizens, and that trust goes both ways. And that, we can, just as people are quick to, maybe get upset about new technology causing new problems, there's also responsible AI companies like Steg and technology that exists to ensure security and privacy.
Yeah, and I was thinking, through, because I know at Corner Alliance, we help programs really facilitate effective, meaningful two-way information sharing between government or federal program managers and its stakeholders and constituents, because it's something we feel passionately about. Government programs should be reacting to public need and providing high performing, impactful services, products that benefit the welfare of the country. And I think by using tools that you've talked about with your company and that you've worked on in your academic career, I think that verifying or building an infrastructure for meaningful information exchange between the public and federal programs is an opportunity that we shouldn't discount, certainly. And then specifically in industries like telecommunications network design or management, energy grid management, automating some IoT or transportation, management sensors at like the city or state level, there are increasingly, algorithms are being used to increase efficiency and effectiveness and things of that nature, and could represent points of vulnerability. I guess, do you see Steg AI or some of the watermarking or verification techniques that you've worked on impacting any specific public services? Or I know you'd mentioned election kind of verification and management, things of that nature, but other applications that come to mind?
Yeah, sure. Before I get to that, I just want to touch on something you said before. I agree. I think, when there's a clear communication channel between, governments and the private sector, this allows us to develop technology and solutions that are, reactive to the needs of the time. And I should really call out the National Science Foundation, who has been a big supporter of Steg AI since our inception, and actually before that. So much of my PhD research was funded by the National Science Foundation, but we also went through a program of theirs called ICOR, which is where we did our initial customer discovery and formed our initial team and started to get introduced to the concept of customers and explored our product market fit. And then we've been fortunate enough to get SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research, grants from the National Science Foundation for phase 1 and phase 2 as well. So that's been great. In terms of areas of critical need, so I think there's a lot. I think certainly it's sort of like difficult to separate how our digital lives have become so important and separate our kind of digital identities from our physical identities. So I think that there's a number of touch points there where, we're relying on maybe some outdated assumptions about trust that we really ought to re-examine. And I think some of the obvious ones are about ensuring that elections are free and fair, ensuring that there is a clear and trustworthy communication channel both ways between government and its public. Honestly, a big part of this is stopping the spread of misinformation campaigns from state actors, which can be very effective for influencing political elections and can be very difficult to measure. I mean, Cambridge Analytica was something from 2016, and we're just now starting to understand what the impact of that has been, and that's all pre the advent of the generative AI revolution.
Yeah, and I know that we've done so. A lot of the clients that Corner Alliance supports are increasingly kind of focused on developing almost public-facing data repositories. Think of the typical, data.gov, treating data, or whether it's used for inputs or training of AI models, providing that as a public utility. And I could see, verifying the quality or testability of certain data sets as being, important for federal agencies to consider, to ensure there's some sort of expectation of quality or reliability on the information that innovators in the academic or industry space are using to develop new products and services and things of that nature. I guess with that in mind, are there specific elements of how your technology operates, whether it's embedding a digital watermark into a digital asset or tracing the evolution or attribution of change to that digital asset over time that you find really compelling, or that you're really proud of, things that kind of differentiate your work from some of the other digital tracking technologies on the market today?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for asking that question. So the answer is yes. I'd say that since deepfakes and text to image, text to video, generative AI technology has emerged, there's been kind of a reaction to it where folks are trying to say, well, we need deepfake detectors. We need a way of knowing whether or not a piece of content that I'm looking at is generated from an algorithm or came out of a camera, let's say. And I think that there's certainly a place for that. But I don't think that that is a future-proof solution. I think that we need to accept that AI is here to stay, and it's not all malicious. There are plenty of companies that use generative AI technology and quote unquote deepfakes for translation services. There are, when I take a photo in my iPhone right now, my iPhone isn't, first of all, it's not a film camera, it's a digital camera. So when I click the snap button, it is applying a whole series of computational photography algorithms that are designed to enhance the visual quality of the image that I'm producing. And this is everything from HDR to maybe selecting the best frame or merging different frames, maybe doing red eye reduction. These are all algorithms and technologies that fall under the purview of AI, but we don't typically think of them as like an AI edit in the way that we've started thinking about them. And so I use that as an example to say that, I think it's very likely that the future of digital media for us is some kind of hybridized model between organic and synthetic content, to various degrees. And so simply being able to say, well, this, thing is a deep fake, or this thing is, came out of a camera, isn't all that useful. Just because something came out of a camera doesn't mean it's true. either. So I think that, Steg's approach is fundamentally different. Rather than telling you this is a deepfake, be careful, for every piece of content that we encounter, we provide a content credential to it. And we do this with a C2PA content credential. So C2PA is an open source secure metadata standard that Steg is one of the contributors to. It's a Linux Foundation organization that was founded by Microsoft, Adobe, recently Google and OpenAI joined, and it's a way for establishing a chain of custody and provenance for digital media. Where Steg really takes this to the next level is by watermarking content credentials and really baking them into the assets. And so where this is significant is whether or not you are a journalist who needs to ensure that the chain of custody for a photograph that you've taken is there and trustworthy and can be investigated down the line, or if you are a government official who is inspecting a work site, or if you are a generative AI company and you want to be one of the good guys and be transparent that this content that you're producing is synthetic, and we're open about it and you can check it yourself if anything comes out of it. This is sort of where we step in. So we don't just handle deepfakes and synthetic content, we handle organic content too, and it's with a fundamentally different approach, I'd say.
Yeah, well, I keep thinking through this idea of being able to calibrate tools such as digital twins that are powered by a lot of AI processes, whether they're generative AI or just really sophisticated algorithms that are simulating or modeling real world phenomena that can be replicated without running a factory process or operating a telecom network for a month straight. And so I see certain parallels between the need to watermark and verify the ground truth of a digital asset with really training and refining a traditional analytic model over time that aerospace companies, building operators, a lot of government programs have been using these predictive models for decades at this point. And being able to have really high quality, trusted, provable source data yields more reliable, trusted, actionable results. And so, I guess it's a long way of providing an example or teeing you up. Like, how have you seen kind of your stakeholders or customers, benefiting or leveraging kind of, the assets that are being kind of equipped with Steg AI capabilities, whether a watermark or verification, things of that nature?
I am constantly surprised at what our customers are doing. And I'm approached every week by somebody that I would have absolutely not considered to be part of our target market, who has come up with a better idea of how they can be using Steg's forensic watermarking than I could have come up with. We've seen this from financial institutions who want to ensure that the marketing and communication content that they're producing cannot be deep faked for fraud purposes. We've worked with generative AI companies. In fact, we did a wonderful collaboration with a company called TruePic and Hugging Face, where we produced the world's first watermarked content credentials for a text-to-image generator. So, I'd say, maybe kind of riffing off this a little bit more, even consumer electronics companies are using our watermarking technology to defend themselves against leaks, where it's almost like marked bills in a bank vault. Each digital asset gets a unique signature, and if they're being misused in some way, maybe malicious, may not be, we can identify the source of that problem. So, we're fortunate in that our underlying technology and product is very broad. It affects any company that has any sort of security needs and deals with digital media, and that happens to be just about everybody. You also mentioned something before that I want to talk about, because you're talking about digital twins and modeling. I should mention that my wife is actually a climate scientist, and so she does a lot of computational research on global climate models. So, these are enormous supercomputer runs that are used to predict how the Earth's climate is going to change over very long periods of time, and having trust that in the authenticity of the results and the models themselves is absolutely paramount here, as it is with many other software applications.
Yeah. And I could see, I mean, a lot of the organizations that I work with, whether it's, offering, hey, we're going to be calibrating instruments, or we're going to be developing prototypical inputs for, public models that the government, publishes, that academic researchers or climate scientists can use to execute kind of more sophisticated analysis. I think, when I was looking at Steg AI and your research, I was thinking through, you know, the fact that government providing, or, anyone interested in, generative AI applications should be mindful of, what is the quality of the input, and, can you be, if you're going to be relying on generative AI processes to make business decisions or provide public services, or, communicate with people you care about, just maintaining some level of trust and authenticity to, the source data would be important.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually Steg is getting ready to release a certain set of products and tools that are designed to specifically protect data against use at training time or at runtime against generative AI technologies. So you can imagine, if you've spent a lifetime crafting a library, your important photographs, important videos in your life, you don't want, or even art pieces, you don't want somebody training an algorithm to gobble those up and use them without your permission, and potentially misuse them. Similarly, you may not want people to take photos of you or your family that you've posted online, and use them for harm or abuse either. So this is an area where there's absolutely need. It's an area where thankfully security and privacy are extremely tightly coupled and not at odds with one another. And it's one of the main areas of focus for us at Steg.
It's a great point in terms of, it's a balance between making high quality data available for, generative AI applications to use and get smarter and produce more meaningful results over time. But there's also the privacy and security element, that we can't just be leveraging, sensitive elements of individuality or organizational operations or things of that nature. I guess, how does Steg kind of strike that balance, or any of the, analytic techniques or technologies that you're working on, make that, balancing trade-offs easier for users of Gen AI applications?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a couple of things at play here. I think that it can be tempting to think about a trade-off between security and privacy, but I think that trade-off doesn't actually exist. Secure systems are inherently private. And I think the real challenge is balancing the trade-off between security and usability. So one of the ways that we do that is, our company is pretty simple. We have two ways that people access us. We have an API, we have a web app. Most of our enterprise customers are using our API, and they're building Steg watermarks into their existing workflows, so that for either their users or their end users, the general public, they don't have to learn a new complicated tool, or about steganography or cryptography or anything like that. Just like when I FaceTime my mom has no idea about the cryptographic algorithms that are going into that FaceTime call, that are protecting our privacy and ensuring that we know who we're talking to. And but they exist behind the scenes, and they're part of the infrastructure of the internet and the digital world, and they provide that level of protection without also creating a barrier to entry. And so I think that, like, when we're talking about what Steg is doing, is ultimately trying to solve this issue of trust for the future. And we're really starting with images and videos because it's we're such visual creatures, and it's such a big part of our digital identities. But if we are going to solve this issue, we just have to be as adaptable and present and fit into the complicated realities of life seamlessly. We have to make sure that our product and our technology is easy to access. So that's something that we think about a lot, and is kind of one of the main focuses for us.
Yeah, one, and obviously we've been talking about how deep learning is becoming more and more important or pivotal in detecting media manipulations or lack of trust of digital assets. And you had brought up your work or potential applications in verifying election integrity or preventing misinformation related to government operations. I mean, I guess, are there specific technologies or examples from your recent work that you'd like to highlight that kind of showcases how AI can uphold the integrity of government operations or things of that nature?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I'm talking about Steg AI's watermarking algorithms, or any of our content identification or deepfake shield algorithms, these are all based on deep learning technology that we've created. So, there's sort of this old school method of doing watermarking that's existed for a while, and that's great. But, our approach is fundamentally different. We use deep learning to really learn how we ought to be adding watermarks to digital content, how we ought to be ensuring that our watermarks are very difficult to remove, how they can be, impossible to reproduce. So, I think that there's, it's easy to forget that, this deep learning technology isn't just an adversarial tool, but it's a tool that's being used for responsible AI as well. In terms of government applications, I think that a lot of it is just ensuring that communication between a government and its constituents is clear, ensuring that intergovernmental communications are trustworthy, rapidly identifying threat actors and neutralizing them.
Sounds like the at least the way in which some of these forensic techniques are deployed, it's either at an endpoint of a system or kind of the public facing access point, whether it's the origin of a digital asset or how the public may be interfacing with a government system. And I guess, are there any new techniques or kind of new frontiers that may kind of advance digital forensics or authentication capabilities that you're particularly excited about, or you feel may gain traction as we move forward?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so one of the fundamental technologies behind like Stake AI's watermarks is the ability to understand the perceptibility of any kind of change that we're making to a digital asset. People have incredibly complex visual perception systems that are based on movement, texture, intensity, color, all these different things. So, one of the kind of key differentiators that we've used to improve the visual quality of our watermarking products is by training deep learning models to actually simulate the human vision system and simulate perceptibility in human vision, and really what types of things people notice. And we've done this by training on hundreds of thousands of real human responses to real watermarked images, so that they can so we can learn, like, what are people really seeing here, and what do we need to be doing better. I think the other big thing is, just as deep learning can be a tool for misuse and abuse, I think it can also be a tool for protection. And right now we're on the verge of releasing a new product that would allow you to protect your digital files against misuse. It's called Deepfake Shield, and it's done by, again, making imperceptible changes to your digital assets, such that if a adversarial algorithm were to go in and make unauthorized edits later, those edits would fail. Your image would be distorted in some way that could protect your identity and certainly reveal the intentions of an attacker.
Yeah, one, and I think as we look at AI, automating maybe labor intensive processes on the federal service side, or enhancing service delivery or product delivery to American constituents. Do you have any advice to government leaders or policymakers who are considering integrating AI into their strategy or operations? Any advice or recommendations?
Yeah, I think that it's very hard to make broad recommendations about integrating AI into workflows in general, just because AI is such a wide, vast field. I think that it's important to recognize the difference between AI that is used for critical versus non-critical tasks. And what I mean by that is, let's take the case of trying to identify whether or not a piece of user submitted content has been created by an algorithm. There are AI tools out there that will give you an estimate as to whether or not, the video that you're looking at is real or is a deep fake. That may be great for applications where you have a massive scale of content that you're dealing with, and you really just need to get through it quickly, and accuracy isn't your main metric. But in mission critical cases where you can't afford to guess as to whether or not something is trustworthy, that's where technology like provenance and that's where technology like watermarking are really key. And again, it's not just about identifying what's synthetic or what's not. It's about identifying what's real and what's trustworthy. So, I think in general, it's just very useful to kind of keep that distinction in mind about how, an AI system is being used. Is it being used to automate a task? Maybe it's operating better than people, but, it's a scale task. Or is it being used to really enhance the security of, whatever your application may be?
Yeah, well, I know there are certain information sensitivity designations that if you're building a IT system or custom application for government use, the data to be managed is classified in a way that, escalates the more sensitive it is, the more safeguards and controls or verification that's needed on a continuous basis, and you need to verify that you're doing those activities as well. So yeah, understanding kind of the criticality or the sensitivity to the data under management is definitely an important recommendation to keep in mind. And I did notice that some of your work is detecting information leaks or compromised data, and obviously records management among the federal government or state and local agencies. There are hundreds of thousands of data management systems that are operated in the public sector today. Are there vulnerabilities or techniques that AI can support to prevent leaks moving forward, or to safeguard routine management and storage of citizen information?
Yes, absolutely. So, to answer your question, are there vulnerabilities? Yes. And are there techniques that we can do to mitigate those vulnerabilities, to the greatest extent possible? Yes. There's also non AI techniques. Security is a set of practices. I like to think about the analogy of if I'm building a bank, the way I prevent the bank from getting robbed is, you build a vault, but you also hire trusted employees, you train those employees, you have security guards, you have cameras, you use marked bills. There's a whole set of layers that you can do to enhance the security of, your bank, just as a government can implement to enhance the security of the data that it's protecting. I think that there's already a rich field of data loss prevention (DLP) in the cybersecurity community that's focused on this. This is one of the areas of particular interest for Steg. We're really good at leak protection and prevention. We're really good at helping our customers understand when their data is leaked, where that came from and who's responsible. Um, and I think part of our advantage is that we fit very nicely into traditional DLP workflows. We fit very nicely into traditional access management workflows. But we also offer some existing flexibility. Like if your data that you need to protect leaves the walled garden, our protections don't disappear as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think that this is probably one of the areas where there is the greatest need for AI tools to ensure just the protection of secrets and IP.
Yeah, no, and I think that thinking through, I appreciated you bringing up, the opportunity to standardize, the tracking or management of AI generated content earlier in the conversation. But I guess to kind of close things up, are there specific policy or regulatory opportunities that would, enhance the adoption or effectiveness of AI tools, or maybe increase the trust of AI generated content from your perspective?
Yes. So we've been involved in AB 3211 out of the California State Assembly. And this is a bill for enhancing the trustworthiness and safety of generative AI systems by stipulating that AI platforms and providers would need to comply with certain provenance technologies to ensure that their AI generated content can be publicly identified downstream, which I think is great. I know that there's a lot of great work coming out of the executive branch right now in crafting policy around kind of promoting technologies and startups and companies that are mitigating any threats from generative AI and misinformation. Thinking something that I'm very excited about is I think there's a great appetite right now to enhance the level of communication between, high tech companies like Steg AI in the private sector and folks in the government space. This has been done super successfully in the past with banking, where there's been a recognition that, hey, if we all know something is going on, it's better for everyone. And I think that that's very, very much true in the cybersecurity community as well. If we are all communicating openly about the threats that we're seeing and the steps that can be taken, I think we can really reduce the lag time between threats and response in a way that certainly good for cybersecurity companies like Steg AI, certainly good for governments, but just really good for the people that we're serving.
Yeah, just making known common threats, response strategies, mitigation best practices. I think, for the government listeners out there, providing that information in an accessible, kind of high quality way is going to, benefit the industry, certainly. Great. Well, I think I'm looking over, notes here, but I think that covers most of what I had here. I guess, Eric, any kind of closing thoughts in terms of, what's next for, your research or recommendations for, government leveraging of AI systems?
Sure. I would like to announce that we are inviting folks in the camera manufacturing, camera software space to partner with Steg AI so that we can bring watermarked content credentials to their devices at the time of capture. We think that our technology is incredibly compatible with these existing workflows and will really help to close the gap between creation time and credentials in a way that I think is going to be beneficial for society at large. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think applying some of those forensic or authentication techniques at the source makes a lot of sense. But Eric, I appreciate the time and you lending your perspective here on the podcast this week, and look forward to monitoring your and Steg AI's work moving forward. Thanks again for your time.
Thanks very much, Mark.
AI, Government and the Future is brought to you by Corner Alliance. To find out more about Corner Alliance and how we work with government to create results, visit our website at corneralliance.com. And then make sure to search for AI Government Future in Apple Podcasts, Spotify and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Corner Alliance, thanks for listening.